Welcome back to Zenith Poker. In this continuation of our foundation series, we're going to be talking about pot odds. So to understand pot odds, the first thing we need to do is understand how we perform math on the size of the pot. And to do that, we need the following definition. The definition of the relative bet size. Relative bet size. Right? Relative bet size or just bet size. So for a bet of, let's say B, right, B dollars or whatever currency you want, into the pot size of P, so P dollars, the relative bet size is S for size, and this is going to simply be B over P, right? So it's pretty straightforward. Let's have a look at an example. So for an example, let's say the pot size P is equal to 56 and the bet size B is equal to 42, right? So let's say for $56 or whatever, then the bet size S is going to be simply 42 divided by 56, which is 0.75. Okay, so pretty straightforward, relative bet size. So basically every time we have a bet and we have a pot, we're taking the size of the bet relative to the pot, and we call that this number S. Okay, so let's continue. And now we will look at another definition. And now we're going to define what we mean when we say pot odds. All right, so pot odds, the definition of pot odds. For the bet size, S, right, we can convert the bet size into the pot odds, right? The pot odds, we're going to call this pot odds the Greek letter omega. Okay, so the Greek letter omega for pot odds is equal to, or defined as really, S divided by 1 plus 2S. Okay, so that's our definition of pot odds. That's all it is. This is the odds we get as a percentage or as a fraction to continue. So let's look at the example. So for S is equal to 0.75, right? Pot odds, omega, right, is just equal to 0.75 divided by 1 plus 2 times 0.75, okay? And that is equal to 0.3. So for a 3/4 pot bet size, the pot odds are 0.3. In other words, we get a pot odds of 30%. Okay, so pot odds are 30%, 0.3. You know, you can convert it into any kind of other odds terminology that you like. Let's just go through one example. Now, pot odds is different from equity. Okay, so equity in the previous example is, so the pot odds is how much you have to call a bet as a fraction of the pot, but the equity is, as in the previous example, is basically how often you're going to win given the board and the run out and the hands of the two players. So let's just go through another example just so that we can hammer in some of the concepts, and we're going to talk about the pot odds for a raise now. Okay, so in this example, we've got the pot size, right? The starting pot size is $37, right? We have the stack size. The stack size is $194. Okay. Now the first player, player 1, bets $24, and then player 2 raises all in. Okay, so they raise all in, and we're asked to calculate what the pot odds are for the raise. Okay. So in order to calculate the pot odds for the raise component of this bet, with all raises, right, you can think of a raise as the call of the previous bet. And this helps us with our math. So the raise is the call of the previous bet plus an additional bet. Okay. So when we use this information, right, we put in, we need to figure out what the size of the pot is after we call the bet. Okay. Because the raise is, once again, is two components. It's the call of the previous bet plus an additional bet. So the size of the pot after we call the bet. So the starting pot size was 37, but we get two additional calls. So we get the bet, which is 24, and then the call of that bet, which is another 24. And we add all that up, and that's 85. Okay. So we have a pot of 85 after player 2 calls player 1's bet. But player 2 is raising, right? They're raising all in. Okay. Now we need to figure out how big that raise size actually is. Their stack size is 194, but they've already put in $24 in the call of player 1's bet. Okay. So then the raise size, right? So this is the pot size. The raise size is now going to be simply the 194 minus the 24, right? 194, which is the starting pot size, minus that first bet. And this is equal to $170. Okay. Now, let's put all this together. We calculate our relative bet size S, and that's the bet of 170 divided by the pot of 85, right? So it's 170 divided by 85, which is 2. And now we calculate the number that we want to look at, which is the pot odds for the raise. Omega is equal to 2 divided by 1 plus 2 times 2, right? Which is 0.4 or 40%. Okay. So this raise, this all-in raise, gives player 2 a pot odds of 40%. So the trick there is to remember that a call, that a raise is two different bets. It's the call of the previous bet plus an additional bet on top. Okay, so then you need to figure out the pot size from the starting pot plus the call, and then the raise is the additional amount that you put on top of that bet. So raising to here to 194 is in fact only a raise of 170 over the initial 24 that player 1 had bet. Okay. So thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you guys learned something about the pot odds. The pot odds can be calculated for any bet or raise. All you have to do is figure out what the size of the pot is, what the size of the bet is, divide one by the other to calculate the relative bet size, and then put it into our equation for omega, this equation here, for the pot odds. So a pretty important equation. The pot odds is the bet size, relative bet size, divided by 1 plus 2 times relative bet size. So thank you for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye now.